Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, folks, and thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today I want to talk to you about a little article I wrote on LinkedIn. Some people call it a poem, whatever. It's just writing to me. I don't know that I'm a poet or anything like that, but I make things rhyme that make sense, and that's what I was doing. But I just woke up the other day and I've been thinking about writing a Dear Boss letter, as I call it. And basically it's just a simple message to a bad boss. And I shared it on LinkedIn and my other social media platforms. Then I wrote an article about it. And so I just thought I'd take a few minutes and share it with you. And then I may share some other stuff or dig into this a little bit deeper, but we'll see. So right now I just want to share it with you. So here it goes. Dear boss, I wish I could respect you. I really, really do. But you do things that make me not like you. When you walk by without saying hello, that makes me want to pack my things and go. It's easy for me to see. You think you're better than me. When you tell me a lie to my face, I'm actually thinking you're a pathetic disgrace. You never seem to care what I have to say, but I bet you'll listen to me on my last day. When you fail to listen to my voice, it's as if you think I have no choice. But I do, boss. I really, really do. However, you treat me as if you don't have a clue. You see, boss, I don't have to work for you, although you treat me as if I do. I've got options, you see. And one is to decide where I want to be. So there's one last thing you need to hear before I happily walk out and make it clear. I've been thinking about it for a bit. Now it's time to let you know I'm done. I quit. I hope you learned this lesson, boss. When one of us walks away, it's your loss. So that's the little story I shared recently. A lot of people seem to be interested in that and shared it, liked it, made some comments, that sort of thing. So I thought I'd share it with you. But there's a lot of gold in that little story. You know, I share things like that to raise people's awareness, and especially leaders raise their awareness of how their people might feel when they're treated certain ways, when they're managed instead of led. And I'll share a quote with you right here to kind of supports what I was just talking about. It's a quote from Stephen M.R. Covey. You guys may remember I just recently shared a 4-part series on trust, and Stephen M.R. Covey is actually the author of the book, The Speed of Trust, that I was referencing and talking about. So he says something. He says, this is a quote from him. He says, the cost of turnover to a company can be enormous, ranging from 25% to 250% of pay to replace an exiting worker. So the cost of turnover to a company can be enormous, ranging from 25% to 250% of pay to replace an exiting worker. People who are quitting, people who are firing the boss. Because you got to remember, you see a lot of people, they don't remember or they don't even think about it, but anybody can fire their boss. It's called quit and leave. But what a lot of people do is they quit but stay, and that's referred to as disengagement. Quit and leave, turnover, where you fire the boss, that's referred to as turnover. In a lot of companies, you know, they measure their turnover ratio, and they don't even understand what that means. But if you got a high turnover ratio, that means you got some poor leadership within your organization. That's what turnover indicates. If you got high turnover, or if one or two particular leaders within your organization has high turnover, and other people don't, doesn't matter. If you got high turnover as a person, individual, or as an organization, turnover is high across the board, you got poor leadership. And unless you grow and develop leaders, there ain't nothing going to change, because turnover is really not an indicator of a followership problem. Turnover is an indicator of a leadership problem. So I'll share something else that I was talking about recently, and I made an article I wrote an article about it as well, and I actually shared an image. And if you haven't seen the article, again, I recommend you guys follow me on social media, especially LinkedIn, and again on this podcast, somewhere in the 90s, somewhere in the episode 90 range group, maybe around 94, 95, somewhere in there. I created a podcast helping you understand why you need to use LinkedIn. And I don't care what your job is. I don't care if you're 18 or if you're 80 or you somewhere in between. I don't care if you're an entry level frontline worker or you're the CEO or business owner. If you're not leveraging LinkedIn to grow your personal brand, meaning who you are, so people who know who you are, you're missing out. And especially if you're the kind of person who wants to go and grow, you still climbing the ladder. You need to be on LinkedIn. But if you have an organization and you want to attract people to your organization, you need to share who you are as a leader. And you also need to be sharing pictures or videos of what you guys do, what you and your team do. You know, a lot of people, they got a scarcity mindset, so they don't want to share videos of what they do or how they do it. So people don't know what they do. But then there'll be other people with an abundance mindset who aren't afraid to share what they do and how they do it because they're very secure as people in organizations. So they share videos of them doing the work, of the work they've done, of the quality of the work they've done, that sort of thing. Testimonials, maybe where they're talking to a client out on a job site or something like that. And people get to see them and feel them and understand what they do. Those people have a tremendous advantage of hiring and attracting a lot more people than somebody who's not on LinkedIn because they just want to keep what they do private. So, anyway, on LinkedIn, I was sharing recently, a week or two ago, I shared an image. I come across this image quite a while ago, and if you could picture it in your mind, even if you haven't actually seen the real image, you could picture the boss man with a stick with a carrot on it, and he's holding that stick out, and he's got a carrot tied on the end, and then in the other hand, he's got a pitchfork, and so he's behind the worker, right? In this image I'm trying to paint in your picture, the boss is behind the worker, and he's got a pitchfork aimed at the rear end of the worker. And the worker's kind of spun around looking back at the pitchfork, about to stick him in the rear end. And at the same time, the boss is about to stick him in the rear end. He's got that carrot on a stick out in front of the worker. So he's got a pitchfork on one side of the worker and a carrot on the other side. And, it's kind of symbolic of what we hear about and read about, potentially, about the carrot and the stick. How do you motivate people and that sort of stuff. But anyway, I posted that picture. So if you got that picture in your mind, got the boss behind you with a pitchfork and got a carrot out in front of you, what I wrote to go along with that picture, that image, I wrote it in all caps. I said, "This is not leadership. This is manipulation. This is management of people." And if you've been the person in the picture, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're the leader and you lead with a carrot and a stick approach, punishment, that kind of stuff, and reward, that's how you lead, is through punishment and reward. That's what the carrot and stick is really all about. You got to know the carrot and stick approach, that's about as old school as it gets. And being good with a carrot and a stick does not make you a great leader. Being good at this makes you a master manipulator. If you're good with a carrot and stick, you're a master manipulator. And I'm going to tell you what, if you're following someone who's good with the stick, the carrot and the stick, you already know this, but you following a leader that's not worth following. You got a weak boss. They don't have any leadership skills. The carrot and the stick is nothing but manipulation tools. When you think about it, it makes sense, but a lot of people don't think about it. And again, That's why I share these podcasts with you, to help raise your awareness. I don't ever know which side you're on. If you're on the worker side or the boss side, it doesn't matter. The way that I teach these lessons, they all apply to everyone. But the only people who are attracted to the type of leader I'm describing, the carrot and stick leader, or the carrot and the pitchfork leader, to be specific to my image I painted in your mind, the only people who are attracted to those type of leaders are people without options. They don't have options. And literally, people do have options. Everybody has options, right? They can walk out the door, but they walk out the door, they may lose their pay. They're going to lose their pay, but they may not be able to get another job real quick because they don't have options. They may not have relationships and connections and a network. All those things lead to options. So people won't just walk out the door and quit, even when they got a bad boss. Remember what I said about disengagement earlier? Those people quit but stay. People who quit but stay, they don't have options. And then when they got a boss who don't know anything about leadership, the boss is going to try the carrot and the stick approach most of the time. And the reason the boss has to do that is he's trying to manipulate somebody who's on the job, who has quit but stayed. They've quit. They don't want to be there, but they don't have options because they hadn't grown and developed themselves. So they're kind of stuck. They don't want to be there. So what do? They do the bare minimum to get paid for being there. And the boss is trying to get the most he can get out of them, so he uses the carrot and the stick approach. So he's trying to manipulate this person who has quit but stayed. And it's crazy, but that's the way a lot of organizations they're ran. They got a lot of people who have quit but stayed, and they got bosses who don't know anything about leadership trying to manipulate the people who have quit but stayed. I mean, it's like, if you ever seen that old show, the Bad News Bears, you got Bad News Bears playing on the field, and you got Bad News Bears in the dugout coaching the team. And I mean, you ain't got a chance if you got Bad News Bears players and Bad News Bears coaches. So if you're old enough to remember that old movie, that's the way it starts out there. That's the way a lot of organizations are operated. So if you got a boss who's trying to manipulate you, I see a lot of people, they blame the boss. I'm here to tell you, the boss has responsibility in growing and developing themselves as a leader, but that's their problem. That's not your problem. Your problem is you there and you have to follow the boss, a bad boss. So if you have to follow a bad boss, that ain't got nothing to do with the boss. You got to pull out your mirror and say, well, why don't I have options? What do I need to do to develop options? If you're the boss who can't motivate or manipulate people into accomplishing the mission, yeah, those people have a problem, but it ain't your problem. Your problem is you don't know how to lead well. So you need to learn how to lead well so you can attract and retain top talent instead of a bunch of people who have quit but stayed. So that's just a few thoughts on this. But, when I was sharing that, my dear boss story, something you got to think about there. High turnover rates are an indicator of a leadership problem at the top, not a followership problem at the bottom. And again, that's, one of the reasons I was sharing that story with you about dear boss. So I'll share a little something else I posted on LinkedIn recently. And I'm going to do some of that this year. I'm going to go back because every day I spend a few hours every day writing posts for LinkedIn. You may read it in like a minute or two. I might have to spend an hour writing it. But I get up in the mornings. One of the first things I do when I wake up is get caught up on my social media. And then I create memes. If you follow me, you know what I'm talking about. I got some pretty neat. Sometimes it's a neat related picture with a quote by me or someone else. And then most often, if I have time, I'll write several paragraphs, like a little short lesson to go with it. And I'll also recommend some related resources, some of mine and Ria's books. At the end of that little article that I write, I'll recommend, I may recommend a podcast that I made recently to go listen to, or I'll recommend a book, that sort of thing. So that if you want to dive deeper into whatever the lesson is I'm sharing, that you can do that. So one thing I'm going to do this year, I talked about it. I'm going to share lessons and stuff based on a lot of quotes that I've captured. So the memes that I create and put on LinkedIn or social media come from my quote file. And again, a lot of them are my own quotes, but they're also, I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of quotes that I've gathered and captured over my years of reading from other people. So this one is one of my own quotes, and it actually comes from one of my books, The 10 Values of High Impact Leaders. And one of the values in that book is the value of timing. Chapter 4 actually is the value of timing. So that's where this quote comes from. But the quote is related to leadership and says, high impact leaders know timing gives them leverage. See, a lot of leaders, a lot of people, this could be parents, this could be husbands and wives, spouses. Remember, leadership is nothing more than influence. So when I'm talking about leadership, anytime, for any reason, I may be talking about it related to work, but it also applies at home. And timing is one of the hardest leadership principles to teach, right next to intuition. Those two are both hard to teach. You really need a lot of leadership experience to be able to develop intuition and to develop timing and understand the impact. But it's one of the traits that the more skilled you are as a leader, the more you're going to learn to leverage timing and intuition. But I'm talking about timing right here in this little episode today. But many leaders simply do what they do whenever it's best for them without even considering how timing will either maximize or minimize buy-in. When we do what we do matters. And see, that's where, a lot of leaders, they ain't worried, I should say managers of people, a low impact leader. They're not worried about buy-in. They're the dictators. They're the command and control. They're the do what I say, when I say it, how I said it. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Those are low impact leaders. Yes, they have influence. Yes, they are leaders, but they're low impact leaders. So low impact leaders, they don't even consider timing because they're the boss. Why do they have to worry about timing? But if you're a leader, timing matters, and it matters a lot. So when we're talking about the value of timing, as a leader, a high impact leader of people, it matters when you do what you do. It's about doing the right thing for the right reason, in the right way, at the right time. So, have you considered the effect timing has on your leadership, your influence? Again, it doesn't matter if it's at work. It doesn't matter if it's with your boss or someone who reports to you or a peer, someone at your level, someone in a different department that you don't have any authority over, and they may not have authority over you, but you're trying to influence people. Again, could be your kids or your spouse. But if you haven't really thought about the impact of timing, you need to know it's huge. And, if you like this little lesson on timing, again, go check out my book, 10 Values of High Impact Leaders. It's available on Amazon. You can read an excerpt from it. I think it's about 15 or 20 pages you can read from that book. And a lot of my other books, you go to bluecollarleadership.com/download, type that in, and you actually can go see the outline of that book and read an excerpt from that book. I don't think the value of timing is a part of the excerpt that I provided, but there's some good value in whatever it is that I did provide. But every one of these values in there is worth the cost of the book. But there's 10 of them in there, so you get a lot of value out of that book. But high impact leaders know another secret. Timing can be used to maximize and leverage their influence. Because of this inside knowledge, high impact leaders are methodical, intentional, and most of all, patient. They'll always wait for the right time to do the right thing for the right reason, as I was talking about earlier. And I'll share a pretty impactful quote that goes along with this from John C. Maxwell. And John said it this way. He says, this is powerful. So if you're taking notes, you're going to want to slow down, write this down. If you're listening, you're probably going to want to rewind it a couple times and listen. But it's pretty powerful. It explains very simply why you need to study and think about timing when it comes to maximizing your influence. So this is what John said. He says the wrong action at the wrong time leads to disaster. He says the right action at the wrong time brings resistance. And then he also says the wrong action at the right time is a mistake. And then he finishes up with this thought: the right action at the right time results in success. So when you do things at the wrong time, sometimes it leads to disaster. Other times it's not a disaster, but it leads to resistance. And then again, sometimes when you do the wrong thing at the right time, it ends up being a mistake. So you got to do the right thing at the right time to achieve success. So that's a powerful little lesson on timing. I'm gonna give you one more lesson today. It's also from the 10 values of high impact leadership. And again, right now, what I'm sharing with you is stuff that I wrote about on social media a week or two ago. But I put something out every day. Remember, the key to transformation and growing and developing yourself is it's not about an event. It's about the process. And I do these podcasts. I call it the drip. You know, if you come here and hear me or see me speak, and I speak 2 or 3 or 4 hours, you're in a room with me and I'm talking that much, it's like I'm spraying you with a fire hose. I'm most of it's going right past you. You might catch a little bit of it, but you're gonna miss most of it. But these podcasts are an example of a drip for people who want to grow and develop themselves. They like what I talk about and teach about. I use this as a drip to keep it going. But also, I have a daily drip. You know, my podcast is a weekly drip, but I have a daily drip, and that's my social media. Most often, I post a couple of things on my Mac Story, my main personal page on LinkedIn. That's my primary social media site. I have over 50,000 followers there. Usually put out 2 things a day there, and then I share all of that with my other social media platforms. Then I have a blue collar leadership page on LinkedIn, and I also usually put 1 or 2 things there that are different from what I put on my personal page, because some people may follow me on my blue collar leadership page who don't follow me on my personal page. So I put different things on both pages. So uh, just in case people follow me on both pages, they'll see different stuff. So it won't be a duplicate on the 2 LinkedIn pages. But anyway, if you want a daily drip beyond this podcast, follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But again, my key place is LinkedIn. I don't really care about the other ones, but LinkedIn, everything's copied and pasted from there. But I shared a quote recently. It comes also from the 10 Values of High Impact Leaders book. It comes from the chapter on the value of delegation. And I'm telling you, that chapter alone, any leader who leads people or any parent, you know, with 1 or more children needs to know the value of delegation. And there's a whole chapter on it in that book. But high impact delegation is about growth and development, not authority. So in that chapter, I teach you the 5 levels of high impact delegation, and I teach them deeper than I'm going to share with them right here. But I'm just sharing with you what I wrote about on the post on LinkedIn. Basically, the 5 levels. Level 1 is wait. Do only as told. The boss does the thinking and is responsible for deciding what will be done and when. No growth and development for the team member. And remember, this could also be saying the parent does the thinking. No growth and development for the child, if you want to put it in that context. Level 2 is ask. So at level 1, you wait until told what to do. Level 2, if I'm delegating to you, at least when you finish, you've got to ask me what to do next. So you notify the boss when you need something to do. The boss still does the thinking and is responsible for deciding what the team member should do next. Then the team member now has a small responsibility, which is to inform the boss an assignment is needed, but there's still no growth and development for the team member. So the goal, when you're talking about 5 levels of delegation, the goal is always to delegate at level 3 or higher. So what's level 3? And again, I'm just giving you like the highlights. If you want to dive deep into this, get on Amazon, order the 10 Values of High Impact Leadership. You're going to get a lot of gold out of that book. That book's not a 30 chapter, 3-page per chapter book like my blue collar leadership books, but it's got an introduction, it's got 10 chapters and a conclusion. And every one of them's got some gold that if you a formal authority leader, or if you want to be a better mom or dad, you need to dive into that book. So let's talk about level 3. This is where everything changes. This is where high impact leaders delegate at, level 3 or above. Level 3 is recommend. So in this situation, you suggest to the boss what should be done next. And the boss is actually delegating you to level 3. I'm saying, hey, you at level 3. And if I know what level 3 is and I've taught you what level 3 is, you know that it means you're going to suggest to me what should be done next. Responsibility and thinking are transferred to you, to the team member. The boss is now positioned to learn how the team member thinks and will learn to trust their thinking or either distrust their thinking, but they'll also have an opportunity to shape their thinking. And they do that not by telling them what to do if they recommend the wrong thing, but by asking them questions to raise their awareness and provoke thought. So growth and development is greatest at this level, at level 3. And something magical happened. Responsibility is transferred to the person you're delegating to. And that's what most leaders want the people to do, is they want them to think more for themselves. But they delegate at level 1 and 2, and then they wonder why people won't think for themselves or why the kids won't think for themselves. It's because they're always telling them what to do. So you got to slow down, allow them to recommend what to do. And then if you don't agree with it, you got to ask some questions. But if you do, then you learn to trust them. Then you can raise them up to levels 4 and 5. So level 4 is do it and report immediately. So you determine and complete the next task. Then you inform the boss that it's completed. So the boss is kind of in the loop, knows what's going on. It keeps the boss informed, but not engaged in the decision-making process unless they ask questions, right? A high impact leader is going to ask questions. They're not going to give directions relative to delegation. So there's limited trust at level 4, more than level 3, and there's greater responsibility because now you have to decide what to do next and you do it, and then you tell the boss about it. So it's done, but you ain't done a lot of things, but you've done the next thing. Level 5 is do it and report routinely. You determine and complete all the tasks. Then you inform the boss as needed. There's full trust, and this is where the greatest responsibility lies relative to delegation. But at this level, the boss trusts you, and the boss has grown you through levels 3 and 4. Remember, high impact leaders, they don't worry about level 1 and 2. They go to 3 and 4 in an effort to get to 5. But level 5 is all about you just report routinely. I could say, give me a report at the end of the day, what happened today. It could be at the end of the week, end of the month. It could be every quarter. It could be if I truly and 100% fully trust you with a project, you just let me know whenever you think I need to know. There's no schedule. It's whenever you think I need to know about what's going on, you let me know. So that's, again, I break it down a lot deeper in the book, give you much more meaning, but I just wanted to expose you to it today, as I did with those on my social media recently. I'll leave you with a quote from David Brooks today. He says, "Success leads to the greatest failure, which is pride. Failure leads to the greatest success, which is humility and learning." Dr. Stephen Covey, he said, nothing fails like success. Nothing fails like success. And that's a perfect example, because what David says was success leads to the greatest failure, which is pride. And then when we talk about failure is only failure if you quit. If you don't quit and you keep going, even though you're failing, you're not failing, you're learning. And what David Brooks said was failure leads to the greatest success, which is humility and learning. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I'll be doing more like this throughout 2022, where I talk and speak from quotes, and a lot of it I'll speak from past quotes and thoughts that I've shared in LinkedIn within the last week or so. I'll expand upon them a little bit, and introduce you for a couple of reasons. One reason is I've already put a lot of thought into writing those articles. Another one is I hope to motivate and influence you to follow me on social media so you can plant these seeds in your mind a little more often and keep climbing to the next level and beyond, because that's where you belong. Our world needs you at the next level and beyond, whatever that means for you. So hope you have a great day. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.